So here we have a 1965, a spring-summer 1965 haute couture garment from the house of Chanel. The suit has been offered to the museum by the family of a lady called Antoinette in her memory. Antoinette was born in Poland in 1920. She spent her childhood in Belgium. And in 1940, after the outbreak of the Second World War, she made her way to London, which is where she spent the rest of her life. Because I'm handling a textile object here, and it has very minimal metal, it's actually safer for the object if I use no gloves and clean hands. This suit would have been purchased at the House of Chanel in Paris. So the process of having an haute couture garment made involves multiple trips to have your measurements taken. The garment is normally produced in a toile, a very simple fabric to begin with, and then the final garment is made in the exact fabrics, and you have an additional fitting to fit it specifically to your body. So this is exactly made for her. It won't fit anybody else. I know from speaking to the Chanel archive that she ordered the suit in February, and then she later ordered the hat in March 1965. It's very rare for us as a museum to be offered haute couture garments that survive in their entirety with the accessories. This one comes with the hat and also a handbag that she ordered. And it's also very rare for the museum to be offered haute couture garments in such good condition and with such good provenance. So this is a very exciting addition to our collection. So Chanel started off her career as a milliner. So hats are really fundamental to both her story and the Chanel look. When she first opened her business in 1909, it was selling hats. And her style of hats in particular were the much more pared back versions of the very elaborate, very over-the-top hats that were being produced in the early 20th century. And it was really the huge success of her hats that allowed her to expand the business. There's a very beautiful stitch motif that starts in the center of the crown and goes all the way to the edge and around the body of the crown and out around the brim. One of the really lovely details about the hat is that it still has its original two hat pins here and here. And the idea with hat pins was if you had bouffanty hair, you could do your updo. The style of the time was the chignon. That was very popular. So you could have your hat over your very large hair, and then the hat pins would secure it in place. This is a really beautiful example of a hat that was commissioned around the same time as the suit, and you can see it was commissioned specifically to match. So the same colorways and the same fabric has been used to trim the brim. There's a really lovely original Chanel label on cream with black lettering sewn to the back of the grosgrain ribbon. And the grosgrain ribbon runs all the way around the inside of the crown so that it sits very neatly on your head. And there's a really lovely contrast stitch here in cream, very simple thread, which marks where the front of the hat is, so you know exactly where to pop it. So as with the hat, the Chanel handbag was a fundamental part of the overall look. This is a really beautiful example, which has been purchased to match the Chanel suit and the Chanel hat. This example was originally designed in 1961, but it was so successful that it came back. It was reprised in multiple collections since. It's highly likely this was bought from the boutique around the same time to match this specific suit. You can see it features many of the quintessential hallmarks of a Chanel handbag. So it's got the classic quilting technique stitched into the fabric in a diamond motif. And it also has the front fastening metal clasp here, metal lock, and the front flap. It's very streamlined. Now, it's quite a thin design, but actually one of the great things about Chanel bags is they're practical. You can see there's multiple pockets that you could use for multiple different lipsticks and makeup compacts, mirrors, and you can also see slightly faded, a very subtle Chanel stamp here, as well as a zipped pocket at the back, and then multiple internal pockets here. With her day suit, Chanel is very much pushing costume jewelry layered on in multiple layers. With her cocktail suits, the style that Chanel encouraged, it's much more understated, minimal accessories. And they're a really wonderful way to wear your Chanel suit but into the evening as a really exciting alternative to more formal evening wear. This would have been worn with the hat, with the handbag, but minimal jewelry because the fabric itself is the main draw. You don't want to distract with lots of jewelry. So what makes this object so exciting is the use of textiles. It's a really great example of cloqué fabric. And cloqué derives from the French term blistered. If you look at the surface of the fabric, what you can see here is almost an embossed or a blistered effect. This very textured, almost architectural, sculptural surface fabric in this very beautiful flower motif with tiny quilted circles in between each flower. The boxy cut that you can see here is typical of a classic Chanel suit and really meant that the wearer had much greater freedom of movement. It was much more comfortable to wear. And the pockets that you see here have been faced in the same fabric that has lined the jacket, made the blouse of the dress, and lined the dress. They're working pockets, as you can see here, and they run all the way down to the edge of the hem of the jacket. You can see with the sleeves, this lovely turned sleeve makes a feature of the fabric that's been used for the lining. And then if we look at the blue fabric, that is a much more lightweight fabric that she's used to line the jacket and face the pockets and also create the blouse and the cuffs and the lining of the dress. So it's uniform throughout. This is made of a mousseline fabric, which is far more sheer than the very heavy cloqué fabric that she's used. And it's a really lovely contrast to this very pale off-white. Creates a very sculptural, very high contrast effect when seen on the body. buttons on a Chanel suit are really key. She very famously included signature buttons to match each suit that she designed. These ones in particular are molded plastic, and you can see they're in a technique with indents on them, which are meant to mirror the very sculptural and textured fabric of the suit. You can see on the inside of the jacket the Chanel label in white, very stark lettering on black background. You can see some of the stitching that has been tacking it down to the jacket has come loose. And if we look inside around the back of the Chanel label, there's a unique number, the couture number. And this is really exciting to discover because this gives you the exact information about when the suit was made, sometimes who it was made for, which season, and which look it refers to. So a Chanel suit, almost always, if it's a couture piece, will feature a gilt metal chain which runs all the way along the bottom hem of the jacket. And the idea with the chain is that it allows the fabric to very, very comfortably and perfectly fall as you're moving in the jacket. If we look at some of her earlier designs for jackets, she originally used to use dress weights, circular dress weights, but the gilt metal chain became so popular and served its purpose so well that this features from a certain point in her career in Chanel haute couture suits. So according to her family, Antoinette was a very stylish woman. I think we can all agree from seeing this suit. She had some favorite designers that she often loved to dress in: Christian Dior, Yves Saint Laurent. And in her later years, she lived to almost 102. She was dressed in Missoni, so super stylish lady. This was one of a number of Chanel suits that she had. So this is going to be a permanent part of our collection. It will be available to be seen in our new study centre in East London. We often get students and fashion designers coming to see our objects in our collection, particularly haute couture, to study the techniques. And this is going to be a really exciting one for them to study in decades and potentially centuries to come.